there's more to the wellness picture than just wash your hands, take 6 feet away, and don't come out of your house. There's way more to the wellness picture, and I think sometimes that if we would really, instead of crushing that fear and isolation aspect of it and sterilization aspect of it, if instead we would take all that energy that's being channeled that direction and channel it toward authentic food, forgiveness, no stress, sleep, hydration, drink plenty of good water, and long lingering hugs. See, nobody's measuring the difference.
From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
Hey, Hilda here. This is episode 234, and our guest today is Joel Salatin. Joel has been at the forefront of the regenerative agriculture and real food movement for decades. He is the author of 12 books, The Farmer featured in Michael Pollan's Omnivore's Dilemma, and the award-winning documentary Food Inc. He co-owns with his family Polyface Farm in Swope, Virginia. He often offers the perfect mix of mischievous humor with hard-hitting information. We sought him out for his perspective on the coronavirus and how to build our health and our spirits naturally. He gives lots of common sense advice in this conversation, from the importance of reacquainting ourselves with our kitchen and the culinary arts, to the benefits of a hug, to why we need to seek out local foods to strengthen our bodies and our communities, and how to avoid the victim mentality in this time of fear and desperation. Before we get into the conversation, I want to remind you of something. The Weston A. Price Foundation has 12 trifold brochures that cover a variety of topics to help you improve your health. From the myths and truths about soy, nutrition for mental health, butter is better, how to protect against cancer with food, dangers of vegan and vegetarian diets, sugar alert, and more. You guys, these are great resources for your family and to share with friends. Get our trifold pack, which gives you one of each brochure, for only $3 on our website under the Order Materials green button on our homepage. The link is also in the show notes. Enjoy! And this episode is brought to you in part by Grass-Fed Thymus by Ancestral Supplements. Ancestral Supplements makes New Zealand-sourced nose-to-tail organ meats, bone marrow, and thymus in simple, convenient gelatin capsules. Based on the ancient wisdom of like supports like, consuming thymus may strengthen and support our own thymus. Find out how thymus may help you manage allergies and support immune health. Visit ancestralsupplements.com to see what they can do for you. Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Joel.
Thank you. It's great to be with you, Hilda.
I wanted to come and be with you. We're here on your farm because there's such heaviness right now with this virus going around, and people are discouraged and isolated and sick, actually. So I wanted you to talk to us about what positive things could come from this time, what positive things are coming from this time.
There's actually a lot of positive things coming from this disruption. One certainly is we've had just a plethora of new interest in authentic food or integrity food or whatever you want to call it. And we're very excited about that. I mean, these are people that would have never crossed that threshold before, and they're really concerned about provenance. And so wouldn't it be interesting if a severe isolation procedure drives people to relational provenance?
Interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, so what we're seeing are people that, I mean, look, the state parks are closing, all sorts of things are closing where for people to go out and get into nature. And so we've been encouraging people to come to the farm, walk barefoot in the pasture, how do you build your microbiome? How do you do this? And so we're encouraging people to come and, pet a chicken, walk in the pasture, strip down and wiggle around in a compost pile. I mean, ultimately what we need to be talking about, and not enough people are, but I think there's an increasing desire to, is immunity. How do we actually foundationally build immunity?
That is a great question, because what we've been told so far in the midst of this virus is to distance ourselves from other people, and wash your hands. These are the two main messages I'm getting over and over again. Are you daring to say that there's something else we can do?
Well, I think there's a lot we can do. I mean, we all know about our microbiome. I mean, there are what is it? A trillion decisions being made in our bodies every microsecond, as all these bacteria and things are making decisions about what to trade, and I'll trade you a molybdenum for a little bit of that sugar, and all this. So there's all this going on. It's a very complex thing, and so at the end of the day, the government can't make you well. A health official, bless their hearts, I mean, I appreciate them, and I'm not trying to denigrate in any way, but I'm just suggesting that at the end of the day, I have to take responsibility for myself, my family, and what that means is I've got to be serious about immunology, about how do I build a foundation of health in my body.
Because the two things about washing your hands and distancing yourself, they isolate us, and hopefully the theory is, I guess, that we're not going to come into contact with the virus, but they're not helping my body prepare in case I do.
No, they're not. The hygiene hypothesis, which is a pretty credible theory, it's still a theory, but many medical doctors, especially allergy doctors, homeopaths, and naturopaths have signed on to the hygiene hypothesis, which essentially says that our immune system is like a big muscle, and so it needs exercise. And I don't know about you, but exercise is painful, right? I mean, it just is. And so a lot of small assaults are a good thing, actually, for our bodies, as long as we have a foundation that's ultimately healthy. And I'm still waiting for some of those public officials to, as they talk about hoping for a vaccine and tell you to wash your hands and all the other things, is for one of them to stand up and say, guess what? Let's do a week-long national initiative to build our immune systems. So we're going to start by, for a week, let's nobody drink soft drinks. Nobody drink sugary drinks. Instead, we're going to drink kombucha. Just substitute it. You don't have to stop drinking, just drink something different. So feed your microbiome instead of, killing it or making it lethargic.
I wonder why they're not saying something like that. Like, I haven't heard anybody talking about supporting our immune system. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because, well, I don't know, but here's a thought. Okay. Here's a thought. A thought is that as a culture, we love to be victimized by a bogeyman. We don't like to be responsible. We want a bogeyman, okay? And so if this virus is essentially like, you might get it tomorrow, and we all walk around as if there's some angry fairies up in the the sky dropping dust onto us, and you might be next. It takes the responsibility away from us. And I think this is the problem with people choose. How many people know they should eat better, but they don't? They assume that, well, if I get sick, the doctor will fix me, or I'll take a drug that'll fix me. I mean, we've been creating a kind of entitlement victimization culture for some time, and I think that there is a reluctance to just look in the mirror and say, you know what, it's up to me.
This is one reason I wanted to come see you, because I think we are cowering in fear as a population worldwide, as if we had nothing to do with what's happening. So when I talk to you, when I hear from folks like you and Sally Fallon-Morell and Tom Cowan, I realize, oh, wait, there are things I can do beyond washing my hands.
Well, sure. So I just said, what if we have a national initiative to increase immune systems? So let's think about things that we know. This is not foo-foo. Things that we know. So first of all,
it's not foo-foo or woo-woo.
Or woo-woo. Yeah, that's Sally's word, I think. So first of all, don't eat junk food. So that's the first thing. Do no harm. That's the first one. Yeah. Do no harm. Stop eating the junk food. And interestingly, according to all the reports, when this thing hit and the grocery shelves went empty, the first thing that went was all the junk food. That was what people were scared. I'm not going to have my Snickers bar. I'm not going to have my my worms. You don't even know what it is because you don't buy that stuff. I don't get it. A Snickers bar like twice a year. That's pretty good. Okay. So anyway, so stop eating junk food.
Okay, number one.
That's number one. Number two is sleep. we don't get enough sleep. And we need, 8-9 hours. My goodness, this time you should be sleeping. Number 3 is just mental, spiritual, emotional stress. You need to forgive. I mean, and again, our country is acrimonious. It's acrimonious politically. It's acrimonious about a lot of things right now. The people who hate rich people, the people who, I mean, there's a lot of animosity. And at some point, you need to just let it go. And of course, some of this is, I mean, you can be in anguish about a relational issue, a personal relational issue, a spouse. But let's take, if we would take this time and learn how to talk to each other about the difficult subjects so we can heal our relationships, that would go a long way to build our immune systems.
Okay, so avoiding junk food, getting more sleep, working on forgiveness and improving relationships. And then what was the bit about getting in the compost pile? How does that help us? Because I'm here, I might as well try it.
Yeah, well, the idea is to stimulate your microbiome. And so, our bodies, we're not sterile. We're not sterile. There are very few things in this world that are sterile. I mean, if you're in a surgeon's room, yeah, you probably want a sterile surgery. But other than that, we're immersed, as we know, in this whole soup of bacteria, protozoa, nematodes. We don't even see viruses, okay, that we don't see. Most of them are actually good. Almost all of them are good. And so the idea is to build a habitat in which we have more good bugs than bad bugs. So we encourage people, come wiggle around in our compost pile, pick up a chicken, pet a chicken.
Because when we diversify our microbiome, we're making it stronger, essentially.
Yes, because most of the bugs are actually positive. Very few are negative. On our farm, we've learned nature's kind of default position is wellness. And if something's not well, we don't assume, we didn't use the right vaccine. We didn't use the right concoction. We assume, we must have messed something up that broke down the immune system to allow the immunological function to be overridden by bad guys. And I mean, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, so I'm speaking in very, layman's vernacular. But
which we appreciate.
But there are good guys and bad guys out here, invisible, all in us, over us, and through us. And so what we want is to create a habitat. Richard Louv, in his wonderful, iconic book, Nature Deficit Disorder, talks about the physical value of actually breathing in. Those tree leaves are actually exuding bacteria, okay? And so when you get out in nature and breathe in clean air, not traffic air, and not, repurposed air through the ventilators of the, condominium, but actually breathe in nature's air, you are feeding your whole complex microbiome all this wonderful stuff.
You know who else says that is Dr. Zach Bush. Yes. He even has like a little hashtag like diversify your microbiome. It's better than that. It's not that. But I see people all over the world using that hashtag kind of saying, look what I'm doing right now. But Joel, right now people are saying literally stay inside.
Well, one of the single biggest destroyers of immune systems is loneliness. And, it's interesting that in a culture where we spend so much time on electronic media, social media, and all this, you don't have to go very many days opening up a major media, some sort of newspaper, magazine publication, where it doesn't have an article about loneliness. We've never been on all there's some sort of a measure, a scale of loneliness. We are more lonely as Americans today than we've ever been.
No matter how connected we are virtually, we're still extremely lonely.
Yes, and in fact, in some of his early work, Thomas Friedman, the New York Times author who wrote Flat, Hot, and Dusty, whatever, Crowded, he wrote several of these really powerful cultural-looking books. He developed the concept, 15 years ago, that with the internet and with global communication, we're now a sixth of a second away from every other human on the planet, but his point was that's too far for a hug. And I just thought, and you mentioned Dr. Zach Bush. What a wonderful man. My kind of personal tagline for him is hugs and not drugs, because he talks about a 2-minute hug. And I've watched him do this. And he says people come, I mean, he talks about curing some pretty incurable things just with a long 2-minute unconditional, I accept you the way you are hug. There's healing power in that. And so nobody, there's no science committee that's actually measuring the externalized cost of loneliness versus spreading. And again, I'm not taking the coronavirus lightly. I'm not trying to belittle it. I'm not making fun about it. I'm just saying there's more to the wellness picture than just wash your hands, take 6 feet away, and don't come out of your house. There's way more to the wellness picture. And I think sometimes that if we would really, instead of crushing that fear and isolation aspect of it and sterilization aspect of it, if instead we would take all that energy that's being channeled that direction and channel it toward authentic food, forgiveness, no stress, sleep, hydration, drink plenty of good water, and long lingering hugs. See, nobody's measuring the difference. No. But if you say that, then you don't care. You're whatever.
Plus, you're not wearing a white lab coat, so we can't believe you.
Yeah, you don't have alphabet soup behind your name, so you're not credible.
Coming up, Joel talks about how people are actually committing suicide because of the desperation and fear brought on by the coronavirus. But then he turns the spotlight back on the positives, how people are planting gardens, buying chickens, and more. He spends a good deal of time reminding us what we have control over and how we can empower ourselves during this crisis.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
White Oak Pastures. White Oak Pastures is the only farm in the United States with scientific data proving our regenerative farming practices are producing carbon-negative products. Our cattle sequester more carbon than they emit in their lives, which means that as a consumer, you can fight climate change by shopping at whiteoakpastures.com. We pasture, raise, and hand butcher 10 species of livestock, which can be shipped directly from our farm to your door. Vote with your dollars for a production system that is good for the animals, good for the soil, and good for rural communities like Bluffton, Georgia. I've been to White Oak Pastures, you guys, and I can personally vouch for their quality and integrity. So shop for your meats, poultry, tallow skin products, pet shoes, and leather crafts at whiteoakpastures.com. And this episode is brought to you in part by Grass-Fed Thymus by Ancestral Supplements. Ancestral Supplements makes New Zealand-sourced nose-to-tail organ meats, bone marrow, and thymus in simple, convenient gelatin capsules. Based on the ancient wisdom of like supports like, consuming thymus may strengthen and support our own thymus. Just in time for allergy season, support your thymus this spring with unique peptides such as thymosin, thymopietin, and serum thymic factor to regulate, strengthen, and support immune health. Thymic extracts have been shown to normalize and modulate the ratio of T helper cells to suppressor cells, whether the ratio is low, as in chronic infections and cancer, or high, as in allergies and autoimmune diseases like psoriasis and rheumatoid arthritis. In other words, thymic factors appear to balance the immune response up or down as needed. So visit ancestralsupplements.com to see what they can do for you. Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions.
I just heard a very interesting radio interview this week from Dr. Carol Lieberman. She's a board-certified clinical psychologist in Beverly Hills. She's written books, and so she's a credible person. And she actually invented this term, coronacide, or conacide. I think it was conacide, but anyway, that doesn't matter. Which is committing suicide from the desperation and frustration and fear created by coronavirus.
And is that happening?
It actually is happening. And domestic violence, police departments, domestic abuse is way up because these isolated families are getting tired of each other. We haven't cultivated relational function in our culture. And so here we are thrown into thrown into a Little House on the Prairie scenario like Laura Ingalls Wilder, but we haven't learned how to write poetry and play our own music and, and do the things that we did. That was the foundation of family and community social structure.
Well, I have something heartening to tell you. So I've been talking to friends, virtually, of course, and we're really tired of all these virtual webinars and let's do a Zoom call, and we are getting weary of the digital connection. So what has been happening in my household? My daughter's playing the piano more. My husband and daughter were painting the other day. So some of these things may come back.
Oh, yes. So when we look at trend lines, if we look at this and just say, okay, so what are the kind of the new trend lines? As I heard one commentator say the other day, he said usually disruptions don't make a trend; they simply accelerate a trend that's already developing. Okay, and so if we take that, what we're seeing is, for example, all the seed companies are sold out. There's some of them have actually shut down because everybody's going to plant a garden.
Really?
Yeah. We have 3 people coming this week that are buying 3 chickens for their backyard because they're tired of being out of eggs. Okay, so there's several things happening. One is absolutely a new desire for home security. I mean, I've even heard the word larder a couple of times. When have you heard the word larder?
No, I saw your post recently and someone's like, what do you mean by larder? Like they really had no idea. So maybe you need to tell us too.
Well, a larder is essentially a glorified pantry, but it's an old term used, pre-World War II that described where you kept your food. Pre-World War II, we didn't have supermarkets. We didn't, if you went to a town and said, where's the food was in the larders, that's where you kept your meats, your canned goods, your dehydrated goods. I mean, it was your winter food supply. I mean, that was your larder. And so at our farm, I mean, we started our larder program, I'm going to say 10 years ago. Is probably the most successful marketing campaign we ever did at Polyface was I was promoting this build your stockpile. You shouldn't be at every blizzard and every little, Teamster strike and rumbling in China. You shouldn't be within hours of desperation all the time. So just like we promote having a little savings account. Goodness, stash some cash in the pillowcase if you need to. Just something. And so the larder is that idea is actually having, and if everybody had gone into this with, let's just say, 3 months worth of food supply in their larder, think of the different psychological stress and emotional equity we could have enjoyed going into this if we hadn't have been so quickly desperate. And so we're seeing actually people talking about, well, maybe I ought to stash it. Maybe I ought to buy a freezer. Maybe I ought to stash something. So that's good. So growing some garden, the rush on seeds is fabulous. The desire to reestablish a larder is good. And then another thing that we're seeing is definitely a kind of the emperor has no clothes, as through this disruption we've learned just how dependent we are on other countries, and again, I'm not partisan at all in this, but there is something to be said for America first, for your community first at least. America First has gotten so jargled up with Politico now you can't even say it. People think you're crazy, but certainly community first, where no region has ever been resilient in disruption that couldn't feed itself. And so I mean, even the Wall Street Journal carried a big editorial, I clipped it, saying for the first time we're actually hearing businesses, big business people talk about, well, maybe we need to consider resilience as much as efficiency. So our community doesn't grow cherries as well as northern Michigan, but maybe we should grow some cherries. One was a religious site I was looking at, and he was talking about in the days of Solomon in Israel, back in ancient times, and and of course that was the zenith of the Jewish empire at that time, after King David and Solomon came to the throne, and And what he did, he divided the whole nation into 12 sections, and each one was responsible for so much stuff for the king and his court and his, soldiers and stuff every month. And the thought that this guy made, the point that he was making was, what that means is that every region had to be diversified enough to supply the king's table with diversity. And that's really marvelous. And so I understand that some regions can grow potatoes better than others, or whatever. But people are actually talking about local resilience and local food security, and that's a very healthy, positive thing.
Absolutely. And I do see a movement too where people are like, let's support local businesses, because they realize all of our dependence on Amazon, for example, to provide for us worldwide may not be as healthy or as really resilient as we thought.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So one of the most interesting things that developed here, my personal assistant Wendy, and she's our Polyface public relations gal. She and a friend, a local cheese crafter, sat down 3 weeks ago, and how can we help? How can we do this? Because this was after Governor Northam just closed the Virginia farmers markets, and I've been on a bit of a tear about that in Virginia, the governor and all of our officials. State officials believe that it's healthier to shop at Walmart than a farmer's market. I mean, and that's just, I don't have words. I just don't have words and I'm a word guy, but I don't have words to describe my anger at that kind of idiocy.
And is that still in effect?
Yes, it's still in effect. So our local farmers market closed, and so here we are, spring. All the farmers are ramping up, for the opening of season, 1st of April, and boom, it's gone. And so Wendy and Luella, local cheese crafter, they said, what can we do? And they just brainstormed, well, let's have a local food drive-through. And so they literally dreamed this up. 4 days later, launched it, so that we're ending our second week today with this. It started with 4 of us, and now there's 6 or 7 local farmers involved, and I think that could actually grow a lot pretty quickly. But you shop online, so you have a website platform, a shopping cart. You shop online. It's not completely a la carte, so you basically you can choose a produce bag, a protein bag, an egg, a cheese. So it's not complete choice like Amazon, but it's not CSA either. It's a little bit of a hybrid. So you order. And we put everything together, and then when you pull up, so the pickup spots are 3 to 6 on Wednesday and Friday at this local artisanal restaurant. Yeah. So you pull in, and you simply roll your window down. You announce your name, Amy Smith, and we grab your bag, toss it in your back seat, and you go. And nobody touches anything. We don't trade money. We don't touch. It's a 15-second transaction. It's going crazy. Wow. We had 300 people show up Wednesday. The line was a quarter mile long. Now, it was moving pretty rapidly, but still, right at the peak. It wasn't a line the whole time, obviously. But I'm so excited about this, I almost am levitating because I feel like that grew out of the desperation of the moment. And I feel like for the first time, we actually have a local food curbside option that can be a credible competitor to Kroger curbside service. We haven't had that until now. We haven't needed it until now, or nobody has perceived the need. Yeah. And so now suddenly, this is desperate times call for desperate measures. We invent this thing, and I think this has legs. And everybody, Wednesday said, Wednesday when everybody was coming through, said, oh, I hope this isn't going to stop when the crisis is over. We want this, and it's just fabulous.
This makes me so happy. So businesses are getting creative, farms are getting creative, people are getting desperate. It's kind of moving a lot of us in the right direction. But let's say I'm a person listening to this right now who's like, oh my gosh, I don't have a larder. I don't have much financial stores. I don't have a lot of these things Joel is describing. What would you recommend they should do just to get started on building their immunity and building their reserves?
Oh, well, I kind of have a 3-part recipe. One, the first thing is to get in your kitchen. And this is not a sexist thing. Men and women can be in the kitchen. It's okay. In fact, at the same time. In fact, Kevin Lehman wrote a book, Sex Starts in the Kitchen. You guys, you wash the dishes, you might get better treatment. All right. So
It's true in our house, just saying.
Yeah.
If you're listening, hubby.
that's right. So get in your kitchen and begin getting familiar with your sustenance. I mean, we know more about the right octane level for our vehicle than we do about what's a good chicken or not, or what's a good milk or whatever. So get in your kitchen, get domestic culinary arts. All right, just take responsibility. Number 2 is do something yourself, just to touch the mystery and the awesomeness of life. I don't care if it's nothing but a little football-sized vermicomposting bin under your kitchen sink for your kitchen scraps, all right? When you see those worms and you watch the magic of turning your banana peels and all this stuff into castings that are better than compost, and you can use them on your plants or whatever, it's just wonderful. It's wonderful to nurture something. I don't know how better to say it. There's nothing like nurturing something. One of the most foundational spiritual needs of a person is to be needed. So whether it's a plant, a pet, some earthworms, we need to feel needed. And in times of isolation, we especially need to feel needed. So do something yourself, just to appreciate the miracle of life, even if it's just a tomato on the porch or honeybees on the roof, whatever. And then the third thing is find your local provenance. Turn off Netflix, and you can't go to Disney. Go visit a couple local farms. There are thousands and thousands of small farms, really good high integrity farms that are building soil and doing all the right things. And many of them are desperate for 10 more customers. If I had 10 more customers, I could quit my town job and I could be here full time. You might be the tipping point for that farmer. Your $500 a year purchases from that farmer might be the difference between, okay, I can stay home with my family and do my heart's passion and not have to go into town every day and work for the man in order to support my farm hobby. And I mean, so don't do it just for you. Do it for somebody else in their dream. And the famous marketer Zig Ziglar used to say, if you help other people get where they want to go, you'll get where you want to go. So even if you're not totally sold on the whole food thing, I'm telling you, there are farmers in your community desperate for whom a $50 sale will be the difference between an exciting week and a depressing week. You be that person for them, and you'll get where you want to go.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And these words are so heartening and practical right now. So thank you, Joel. Now I want to ask you the question I often pose at the end. If the listener could do just one thing to improve their health, what would you recommend that they do?
One thing to improve your health. I'm not sure it's about food. I think it's going to be something emotional, spiritual. Probably what's tearing you up inside. Forgive it. Let it go. Forgiveness is not for the other person. It's for you. It's to release you from the chains of that resentment, that vengeance, that vitriolic spirit. Let me tell you, that eats you up.
Powerful words to end on. Thank you so much, Joel.
Thanks for having me. It's always a delight to be with you.
Our guest today was Joel Salatin. Check out his website, polyfacefarms.com, for his blog and other resources. And I'm Hilda Labrada Gore. Follow me on Instagram at Holistic Hilda. And for the show notes for this and every podcast episode, just visit our website, westinaprice.org, and go to the podcast page. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Stay well, my friend, and see you next time.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.